And the answer is sales mastery. But today I don't want to talk about sales mastery, our company, or our advisory services. What I want to talk about and share with you is the philosophy behind sales mastery that I first was exposed to over 30 years ago, and that I've been presenting to companies and speaking at sales kickoffs with thousands of reps ever since. Here's another life curve, and this is the first one that I want to talk about, and the one that really represents mastery. And I first learned about this from George Leonard up in the Bay Area. Very interesting guy. He's no longer with us, but he was a really very impressive guy, a great author, had been a pilot and Aikido coach, and really a genuine human being. And I became such a fan that I actually worked with George, hired him as a coach for a few years. But anyway, what he was showing here is the path or the way of the master. And you see kind of a mini life curve here at the beginning, and then a plateau, and then another growth spurt, and another plateau, and so on and so on. And George described this as the way or the path of the master. So it's not one continuous, ever upward arc until you peak and then sort of tap out, but rather it's a whole series of little growth spurts and plateaus in between. We'll come back to this, but he also, in his original article in the book he wrote a few years later, talked about some variations on a theme. And one of them was the dabbler, which starts off the exact same way, but then peters out, and starts off again, and then peters out, and again, and again. And he called this character, or this, archetype, the dabbler. You often see somebody get into running, and, they get into fitness, and they start with running, and, they see them running around the neighborhood, and pretty soon they're training for a 5K or a 10K, and that's great. And you talk to them, and it's like, oh man, and maybe they're training for even a marathon. And every time you see them, they're running, run. And then one day, it's like, so are you still running? It's like, running, it's so hard on your joints and, hard on your knees and everything. Now they're into biking, and they've got, great bike, and all kinds of lightweight equipment, high-tech carbon, fiber frame and all this great stuff, and, really great equipment. And they're riding their bikes, and they ride in a half century, and they ride in a century ride, and they ride. And they're riding everywhere. And then the next time you say, how's that riding? Oh, riding. Yeah, it takes forever, man. I've put on hundreds of miles. It takes all the time in the world. And now they're into fly fishing or whatever. What's interesting about people like this, if you have any friends like this, you can pick up a lot of really good equipment cheap because they tend to really always get deeply into it, and then they're over it. The reason I bring it up, I think it's of interest in sales, is if you've ever seen someone, that's like jumping from one company to another company to another company, it's like, man, this place is awesome. We've got a sales-driven culture here. And then the next time you see, oh man, they were always, hounding me, and now I'm in this new place. And man, we're killing it over here. And then you see them, 18 months later, and they're in a new place. They just keep jumping. This is the classic, do you have 10 years experience, or do you have 2 years experience 5 times? And certainly I've seen that in sales before. Here's another variation, the obsessive. Again, starts off the same way, but when performance starts to tail off, instead of giving up or jumping ship, these people double down and double down and double down. And they are all about it. They just keep pressing and pressing. And there's a lot of volatility associated with these folks. Customers either love them or they hate them. They're the hero, and the next year they're the zero. They're the goat, and there's always a lot of drama, a lot of volatility around folks like this. We love this guy. If you ever bring her in here again, we're pulling the account. It's just all over the place. Okay, so the question I have for you about a person in sales like this is, how coachable do you think they are? And the answer is not very. And the reason for that is these people have bought the lie. We've got another video on this, the big lie. They have bought the lie that they are their number. If their number is good, they're great. If things start to fall down, fall off, performance falls off, they just keep pressing and pressing. And when you try to coach them, when you try to provide some guidance, it's like, I know how to do this. Do I know how to do this? I know how to do this. Have I made my number before? Yes, I know how to do this. And these people are literally in pain when their number is not, like leading on the leaderboard. Very difficult to coach people like this. They often quit in an explosive situation or get fired, when a client has just had enough of it. There's another one. This one's maybe the more common one, the hacker. And it starts off the same way, and then it just keeps going. It just plateaus out. And in sports, this would be somebody, if you're a tennis player at the tennis club, they might be an A-rated player, which is great. In golf, they might, have like a 6 or 7 handicap, which is like great golf. I mean, maybe even low 80s. People say, that's no hacker. That's great golf. But you'll never see them playing in tennis tournaments, like on the road, or you'll never see them, sort of playing in tournaments other than at their own club, because they have their performance tied to what's, normal to them, what's comfortable to them. And the problem with this isn't, that they are a player or a low handicap golfer or a seller who's making his or her number on a consistent basis. The problem is that this person is becoming a dinosaur over time because of all the changes I talked about earlier, changes in the marketplace, changes in the economy, changes in regulation, changes in the buyer-seller power equation, and so on. Problem is, it's not this long, successful, continuing plateau. It's really all of those changes are putting pressure, driving this down. This is the Willy Loman story. These are the people who don't innovate, who don't change and grow over time. They keep playing the same tape over and over and over. And that, in the long run, is, not the road to success. So, we've seen the dabbler, we've seen the obsessive, we've seen the hacker. What I'm always interested in is the master, and I'm always looking for these folks. And the important thing to know here is there are 5 keys to mastery. Key number 1, get a coach. The coach provides objective, accurate, timely, relevant, and individualized feedback. There are 4 ways to improve performance. Number 1, get a coach. After that, reading books and watching videos, playing with friends and peers, knowledgeable friends and peers, or repeating what you've always done. Those are the options for improved performance. Having a coach is so far in front of the others, you can't even believe it. Okay, so number 1 key to mastery, coaching. Number 2, this is a big one, I think, in sales, surrender. And when I say that, surrender is not giving up, it's giving in. It's letting go of the illusion of control. And it's especially in sales, letting go of ego. Why'd we get the deal? Good selling. Why'd we lose the deal? Bad pricing. Why'd we really get the deal? Why'd we really lose the deal? That's, let's look at the process and the elements of the process. Did we do all those things? And let's leave the ego at the door. Sales mastery key number 3 is practice. You'll hear people say practice makes perfect. That's not true. Practice makes permanent. Perfect practice makes perfect. If you're doing something wrong and you practice it over and over and over again, you can pretty much do it wrong every time without even trying. I mean, it's like you've practiced it. You've got muscle memory. It's automatic. Perfect practice makes perfect, and that's where coaching comes in because you're getting feedback, timely, accurate, consistent, and so on, relevant, individualized. So perfect practice makes perfect. The other thing we think about practice as the verb to practice, but it's also the noun, your practice. As a sales professional, what does your practice look like? Attorneys have a practice, doctors have a practice. What about you as a seller? As a sales professional, what does your practice look like? What's the mix between existing and new customers, between large and small or enterprise and strategic and so on? What's your practice development plan? And are you working on that? Okay. Key number 4, mental discipline. love of rigor, love of the act itself, the stick-with-itness. It's a willingness. It's always easy to spot masters. They have a willingness to look foolish in front of their peers. They're willing to try things differently and explore them. It's the polar opposite of do I gotta. With CRM, usage is always a problem. Do I have to? It's such a hassle. Do I have to use this system? Do I have to record this? It's like, dude, I just want to do whatever is going to help me get better. And if following this discipline helps me do it, I'm in. So key number 4 is mental discipline, love of rigor, and stick-with-itness. And finally, key number 5 is the edge, what George Leonard called the edge, or simply your excitement, your personal excitement and enthusiasm about the things you do, the company you rep. It's your total engagement, and it's a core belief that you're making a positive difference. So those are the 5 keys: coaching, practice, surrender, attitude, and the edge, your excitement. And I want to leave you with a couple of quotes. This first one is from John Howard, a name you may or not be familiar with. He was, an Olympian, won gold medal in the Pan Am Games in bicycling several decades ago, back in the 80s and 90s. But after doing all that, he was told that he was too old to compete anymore in the Olympics. And so he went out and won the Ironman triathlon in Hawaii. He set a 24-hour endurance record, riding 512 miles in 24 hours. And for a decade or more, held the title of fastest self-propelled human being. He rode his bicycle on the Bonneville Salt Flats at 152 miles per hour. That has since been eclipsed, and most recently by a woman that he now coaches, Denise Mueller-Korenik. She rode her bike, and they have a whole rig now. They do this trailing behind the car, but she rode her bicycle at 184 miles per hour. In any event, clearly this guy is nuts, but he loves what he does. And here's what he said about mastery. And for him, of course, he was talking about biking. For any of this to make sense, you have to love the activity itself. If you look on it as competition, which you see all the time in sales, it's always, what's the competition doing, competitive analysis and all that. He said, if you look on it as competition, if you look on it as work, you won't get anywhere. You have to find gut level enjoyment in the act itself. I used to work. Now I play. And I love that quote. This other one is from Tony Robbins. I think everybody's familiar with his name. Cool guy, speaker, author, and obviously a huge influencer in the world. He says, one reason so few of us achieve what we truly want is that we never direct our focus. We never concentrate our power. Most people dabble their way through life, never deciding to master anything in particular. I think that sales is just the coolest place to be, to learn and grow, and to focus and concentrate. And, what's great about it is you can stay on the field for a long time. You don't have to age out. I'm in pursuit of sales mastery for myself, and I certainly wish it for you. Thanks for watching.